Soulmate with Brian. Hello everyone, thank you so much for a new episode of Soulmate with Brian. We are so blessed to have our next guest. He's from the UK and he's a producer, a storyteller, a Christian, passionate man of God, and we are so blessed to have him on our show today. Let's give a big welcome, round of applause for Joel.
안녕하십니까. 저는 단이라고 합니다. 저는 조엘이라고 합니다. 그리고 우리는 단앤조엘! 나이스.
안녕하세요.
안녕하세요.
Hello. Why don't you tell us about yourself to our viewers today?
To this camera over here.
Yeah, right there. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Joel from London. I run a YouTube channel with one of my best mates called Dan. It's called Dan and Joel. We make content in Korea, and I love Jesus.
Wow. Thank you. That's the best introduction.
Oh yeah.
So far.
Yes.
We've only had 2 guests
Okay.
before you.
I've set the bar
But yeah.
pretty low.
I love that last line. Yeah, I watched, not just me, but people from all over the world. You watch your wonderful YouTube channel. So how did you get started in the whole YouTube, videos and what you're doing right now?
Sure. So I don't know
Where do you start? Yeah.
Yeah, where do I start? I mean, so I studied film and video at university. Before that, I went to college and did a 2-year college in moving image.
Okay.
So it was always my passion, kind of actually since I met Jesus from the age of 16, I always wanted to tell stories.
Okay.
Really feel like God gave me that passion. So that's kind of what I did, and then I became a freelance filmmaker, cameraman. I was able to travel the world and do loads and loads of different kind of shoots, a lot kind of documentary stuff. During that time, friends of mine actually became quite big.
영국남자, right?
Yeah. And
영국남자.
조엘이랑 부산에서 뭘 먹어야 할지 여러분들한테 물어봤을 때 봄장어를 제일 많이 추천해 주셔서 부산의 아름다운 경치도 구경할 겸 차 타고 자갈치 시장으로 갔어요.
한국말을 너무 잘해.
고맙습니다. So this is in the same family group as octopus and one. Wow, apparently it's ready to eat.
oh my gosh,
Let's do this, dude.
We're gonna get one of these guys. Look at that.
oh my gosh, it looks amazing.
Bit of that. Here you go, Joel. This one's for you.
고마워.
Bit of samjang.
당연하지.
Just wrap that bad boy up.
삼겹살 style.
Konbe.
Okay. So we know each other from church.
Oh, from church.
So we're really, really tight, and we've kind of gone through a lot of stuff together, and so they kind of blew up, and so I've kind of helped them out on screen and behind screen in various different ways, and something that I wanted to do for a long time was to move to Korea. So about almost 5 years ago, I said to Dan, one of my best mates, I said, should we move to Korea for 3 months and make a YouTube channel and see what happens? And yeah, it was just an amazing experience.
Wow. So
yeah.
why Korea though? Out of a lot of countries all over the world, from UK to Korea. Why Korea?
Yeah, sure.
Kimchi?
In some part, I mean, the food is amazing, right?
Yeah.
And the culture, and when I first came to Korea, it was just over 10 years ago, and it was one of the first countries that I'd actually visited. It was the first place in Asia that I came to, and it was before I'd kind of started traveling for work and got to know, experienced the world a little bit. But I came to Korea and I just fell in love with it. And I think God did something really special in my in my mind, in my heart, by taking me here at that time, and I think it's stuck with me. And I think every time I come to Korea, I always feel like God's really in it.
Yeah.
So I think God really planted seeds back then. I really fell in love with Korean culture, the Korean people.
Yeah.
And yeah, after it was somewhere I always wanted to come back to live. So here I am.
So you came to Korea, or you visited about 10 years ago,
Yes.
and then you ended up living here about 5 years ago.
Yes. Yeah.
So how has it been visiting Korea 10 years ago and actually living here? You know, it may have been very different,
It's
right?
very, very different. I mean, like, my Korean's improved a little bit. My English has deteriorated a lot of it. But yeah, I mean, it's you start to you not just learn the language, but you learn the culture. And so I really struggled for the first couple of years with just like, I was loving it. It was this amazing kind of like journey, and you know, pre-COVID, and you could go out late and you could meet people,
Yeah.
and you know, just be a super extrovert, but I really struggled with like the day-to-day stuff, like paying my bills,
Right.
or so that stuff. You do realize, oh gosh, actually living here is very different to traveling,
Exactly.
like anywhere really. But it's been amazing.
Right.
Like I really do love living here. I was back in the UK for 5 months. Well, my visa was processing recently, and it was an amazing time, but it was just like, I'm not home. It really felt like that, which was kind of scary in some ways. But I think Korea's given me, for this season of my life, it definitely, maybe, you know, onwards as well, a place I can call home. So it was super special, I think.
So I'm sure you've met, and you're meeting right now through your YouTube channel and your work. You're meeting a lot of different Koreans all over the peninsula, right?
Sure.
What are some stories, or what are some people that you remember from, you know, your projects? You know.
When we meet people, we want to kind of tell their stories, but we're moved by certain things, I think, that we've seen here. So one of my favorite episodes we've ever shot is, fortunately, Dan has phenomenal Korean, but he also has this way of just interacting with people that is so.
Oh, really?
It's just so amazing. And so, you know, someone was walking down the street, and he would just, you know, would just insult the people, you know, and get into conversations. But we both of us, we have a bit of a heart for the cardboard collectors. And so we filmed with, it was actually Dan got quite friendly with a lot of them. We'd just kind of hang out with them.
Yeah.
He ended up doing a photo project with a lot of them, and he kind of just was like, said to his kind of elderly lady, can we take you for dinner and just interview you?
저는 2년 넘게 전부터 포토저널리즘 전공으로 진행했던 석사 과정으로 저희와 같은 동네에서 폐휴지 나르시는 할머니 할아버지들과 사진 프로젝트 하면서 같은 동네 주민으로서 그 외에도 어느 정도로 친해진 것 같아요.
And her story was just beautiful. You know, it was you know, how does someone end up in, you know, an elderly person end up collecting cardboard, you know, making kind of like $2 a day.
Yeah, yeah.
Doing very like strenuous work, kind of doubled over, and for a long time it was quite hard to, you know, take her for dinner because of the age, the hierarchy thing. She was always like, she'd feel like, I have to pay for you, I have to take you. It shouldn't be the other way around. Yeah. So yeah, when she finally allowed us to kind of take her for dinner and film with her, it was just beautiful, I think. And yeah, now we see her around a lot, and
Really?
she's always just so happy to see us, and she brings so much joy to us. And I think that's the thing is, like the locality, like telling stories of people that you don't just meet once necessarily.
Right.
Obviously that's fine, but kind of people that you actually have a relationship with, and even if it is quite extremely different, you know, two British guys, and an elderly Korean lady or elderly people. It's nice to feel like you can have a relationship.
Right.
And I think actually in part us being from another place
It helps.
brings the barrier down. Because if we were
Right.
Korean, it would be really tough, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I love Korean. Right. But even for myself as a Korean American,
Right.
it actually helps
Right.
to witness and connect.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I was at a school, all guys, all boys school. They didn't want me to be there because I'm a guy. Right? I'm not a girl, a singer, but I came in. But just as a Korean American,
Sure.
they were like, "Oh wow, what's this? It's unique, And my Korean is not perfect, and that helps break barriers as well. And through that, we can connect and also share about Jesus as well.
You just said about the Korean not being perfect, and that's something that I not struggle with. But obviously, my Korean isn't perfect. But I think like one of the things that God's really taught me over these last 5 years is I've become very childlike. I've become very dependent on other people, and
Right.
and this kind of term came up recently, and it was called the gift. Like someone said, it's like a gift of weakness.
The gift of weakness.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
And
I have a lot of that.
And so obviously in the Bible it says, his strength is perfected in our weakness. What's the verse? His power is perfected in our weakness. Something is perfected in our weakness.
Yes, we'll have it right below. We'll have the exact Bible verse right below.
But I really feel that and it says he puts his Holy Spirit in jars of clay. And I used to think when I was younger, I was invincible. I used to think if I got good at something, then that was my identity. And living in this country, and I don't have those things to fall back on, or I've aged a little bit, and I don't have the physical strengths that I had, and you start to not just lose a bit of confidence, but you kind of realize, gosh, I'm not this like immortal person that I thought I was when I was a kid, and
Right.
and I've really seen God humble me through that process.
Wow, that's great. That's a great point. This past Monday, during our worship, I have a worship every 2 weeks in Hongdae, and the main guest, he's a comedian, and he's like, Brian, God's using him. I'm like, yeah, thank you for, recognizing that God's. But then the next thing he said was, God's using Brian because he's weak, and I was like, but it's true.
Sure.
And you just mentioned it right now.
Right.
The power of weakness and just relying on God, being like a child. And as a foreigner in Korea, we're more reliant on God and reliant on others.
Yeah.
And God uses that as a strength.
Yeah.
It's
And
amazing.
I think that's something that is so countercultural.
Right.
Like I think I don't know if it's a Western thing, a Korean thing, but depending on what side where you are, I think we all have this kind of self-contained, especially in the West with the kind of individualism. Like I build my island, I build my thing, and we want to be independent, do everything on our own. And the Bible's super clear, like this image of a body. To one he gives a gift of healing, to one he gives a gift of prophecy, the gift of encouragement. To one he gives a song.
The gift of beatboxing.
The gift of beatboxing, the gift of amazing singing. And I think that's the other. I think as God's humbled me, I've actually realised there are things that I have to steward, like a gift that God has given me, whether that's within my personality or within something like a spiritual gift, that kind of thing. So that's been quite an interesting journey, I think.
Thank you everyone for watching our show today. We ask that you would subscribe and click the bell button. We ask for your support. Leave a comment, share with your friends. We're asking a lot, but we will continue to be a blessing to you, and hopefully you can subscribe right now. God bless.
Yeah. In every season, you keep repeating your promises to me. Now there's no stopping what you have started till it is complete. When my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough.